Working abroad feels like an adventure, exploring new places, meeting fascinating people, and building a future filled with possibilities. But sometimes, that journey takes a dark and unexpected turn, leading to heartbreak and tragedy. This is the story of the Takahashi couple, a case that stunned both Japan and the Philippines. It's a tale of ambition, greed, and desperation, one that proves how quickly life can spiral out of control when dreams take a dangerous path. On the afternoon of January 18, 2024, Ichiro Takahashi came home from work, expecting to be greeted by his family. But as soon as he stepped inside their house in Tokyo's Adachi ward, something felt wrong. The house was quiet. Then, he noticed faint bloodstains on the floor. His heart started pounding. He immediately tried calling his parents, but their phones were off. Panic set in when he contacted his father's workplace and found out that Norihiro hadn't shown up that day. Desperate for answers, he called his sister, but she hadn't heard from their parents either. With a deep sense of dread, Ichiro dialed the police, fearing something terrible had happened. When officers arrived, they carefully searched the house. Strangely, nothing seemed out of place. There were no signs of a break-in, and nothing appeared to be stolen. This ruled out robbery, but something still felt off. The couple's phones were traced back to the house, but there was no sign of them anywhere. At first, police suspected they might have been kidnapped. Neighbors shared what they had seen. They said Norihiro left the house around 1 p.m., and Kimie followed about 30 minutes later. Kimie returned shortly after, but after that, the couple seemed to disappear without a trace. As the investigation progressed, police began focusing on Ichiro, Norihiro, and Kimie's son. He said he hadn't seen or heard from his parents since January 16th when he left for work. However, suspicions grew after neighbors reported hearing heated arguments between him and his father days before the tragedy. As the investigation progressed, police found out that Ichiro had recently borrowed a large amount of money from his father, which had caused tension between them. To make matters worse, the two had jointly purchased a property in Senu, valued at $500,000. This shared investment created confusion. Neither of them could fully claim ownership, which likely led to conflict. Investigators thought Ichiro might have lost control during a heated argument about money, with Norihiro possibly getting caught in the middle as an unintended witness. However, after a thorough investigation and strong alibis provided by Ichiro's colleagues, he was eventually cleared of any involvement in the crime. To truly understand what led to the tragic deaths of Norihiro and Kimie Takahashi, we need to step back and take a closer look at their lives. Despite the violent way they died, Norihiro and Kimie didn't seem like the kind of people who would attract such harm. To truly understand what led to the disappearance of Norihiro and Kimie Takahashi, we need to step back and take a closer look at their lives. Despite the uncertainty surrounding their whereabouts, Norihiro and Kimie didn't seem like the kind of people who would attract such danger. They were well liked in their community. Just 2 years before the tragedy, they had moved to Adachi ward and quickly became known as friendly and welcoming neighbors. Kimie was especially the heart of the family. She was polite, quiet, and always kind. Her cheerful, gentle energy made everyone feel at ease, and she was the one who kept the family close. Her absence left a big hole in the lives of those who knew her. Norihiro, on the other hand, had a more reserved presence. He often wore embroidered jackets and carried himself in a way some might describe as Yankee, a term used in Japan to describe someone with a rebellious past, possibly even ties to gangs. To strangers, he might have seemed intimidating, but those who knew him saw a different side. Norihiro ran a small, members-only bar in Sumida Ward. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cozy spot with a 5-seat counter and room for about 20 people. But despite its size, the bar had a loyal group of customers, some of whom traveled far just to enjoy his hospitality. Norihiro made people feel welcome, and his bar became a peaceful place where regulars could relax and enjoy the calm atmosphere. At his bar, he was known for staying open late, just to keep company with customers who had missed their last train home. Instead of sending them out into the night, he'd let them stay until morning, chatting with them and making sure they weren't alone. It was just the kind of person he was, someone who genuinely cared about people and valued kindness. Despite his love for expensive cars, Norihiro wasn't flashy. He never showed off or tried to impress anyone with what he had. He and his wife, Kimie, lived a simple and quiet life. They kept to themselves, stayed away from drama, and never got involved in anything shady. Some people who didn't know them well might have made assumptions about Norihiro because of his bar or his rugged appearance, but those who were close to the couple always insisted they were good, honest people. Their lives revolved around their family, their business, and their small circle of friends. That's why, when news of their death spread, it was so hard to believe it could be related to a business dispute or anything criminal. It just didn't add up. As detectives worked to piece together what had happened, they decided to take a closer look at the CCTV footage from around the Takahashi home. After Ichiro had left the house, two masked individuals were seen entering the property. The masks made it impossible to identify them, but their actions stood out. They stayed inside for hours before finally leaving in the afternoon. Then, just as they were walking away, one of them did something that caught the detectives' attention. They tossed something into a nearby trash bin. It was a small but deliberate action, and it immediately raised suspicions. The investigators acted quickly. They rushed to the bin and began going through its contents. What they found shocked them: a bag full of bloody clothes. It was a terrifying discovery, suggesting the masked intruders were involved in something violent. The bag was sent to the lab, and everyone waited anxiously for the results. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the blood on the clothes found in the trash bin was confirmed to match that of Norihiro and Kimie Takahashi. What had started as a possible kidnapping case quickly turned into a full murder investigation. With the evidence piling up, detectives knew they had to dig deeper to find the truth. They searched the Takahashi home carefully, looking everywhere. They even dug up the garden and used police dogs to help find any hidden clues. Around 6 p.m., their efforts led to a chilling discovery. A strange, foul smell guided them to a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside was a bag that reeked of decay. When they opened it, they found the bodies of Norihiro and Kimie, tightly wrapped and showing signs of a brutal attack. Norihiro had been stabbed 10 times, and Kimie 8 times, with most of the wounds hitting vital organs. The time of death was estimated to be around January 16th, the same day Ichiro had noticed his parents were missing. This grim revelation shattered Ichiro. He had been holding on to the hope that his parents were still alive, but now that hope was gone. His grief turned to anger as he learned the brutal details of their deaths. The police, now certain that the masked figures seen on the CCTV footage were involved in the murders, released stills from the video, hoping someone might recognize them. At first, no one came forward with useful information, but when Ichiro saw the footage, he immediately recognized one of the figures: Hazel Ann Bagisa Morales, his ex-girlfriend. This discovery sent the investigation in a new direction. Detectives rushed to Hazel's apartment, which was only a 10-minute walk from the Takahashi home. However, by the time they arrived, she was gone. No one at her building knew where she had disappeared to, leaving the police with another dead end. Just when it seemed like they were stuck, a friend of Hazel came forward with a crucial piece of information. He remembered a strange encounter with her on January 17th, just one day after the murders. He had seen her nervously walking around a convenience store, repeatedly saying the word bandages to herself. When he tried to say hello, she ignored him and quickly left, acting very strangely. Determined to find her, the investigators followed every lead they could. Eventually, their search took them to a lodge in Fukushima. In the early hours of January 19th, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police surrounded the place and arrested Hazel Morales. She was from the Philippines and had come to Japan in November 2017, hoping to start a new life. At just 23 years old, she was fluent in Japanese and had a striking appearance that helped her land a job as a hostess at a bar popular with the Filipino community. These bars often hired foreign workers, but after issues with visa misuse, Japan started tightening rules, especially in the nightlife industry. As a foreigner, Hazel had few job options, and her visa was about to run out. but she found a way to stay. By marrying a Japanese citizen, she could live and work in Japan for up to 5 years. So, she married the son of the bar owner, even though he already had a girlfriend. Their marriage wasn't about love. It was a way for Hazel to stay in the country. Known for her charm, she had no trouble making it happen. One story that circulated about Hazel painted her as a woman who had a special way of drawing people in, especially men. There was a story about a regular customer at the bar where she worked, a man who reportedly spent an incredible $138,000 in a single night just to be near her. A former co-worker remembered seeing this man often, sitting close to Hazel while she poured his drinks and chatted with him. For a time, it seemed like he was completely captivated by her charm, but everything changed when the man found a wedding photo of Hazel online. Feeling hurt and deceived, he confronted her. She explained that her marriage was just a way to stay in Japan, not something based on love. While this seemed to calm him down at first, he soon disappeared from the bar, and rumors spread that he had been arrested for fraud, though no one knew the full details. Eventually, Hazel's fake marriage was exposed, along with 25 other workers who had done the same. When the bar she worked at ran into financial trouble, Hazel, who was pregnant at the time, turned to her husband for help. But instead of supporting her, he coldly denied the child, saying, "That's not my child." Heartbroken, Hazel left the bar, and her child was never mentioned again. She later moved to another bar and even worked as a nurse at a hospital, trying to rebuild her life. Still, she struggled with money, partly due to her expensive lifestyle that she couldn't seem to let go of. About 3 years before the tragic events involving the Takahashi family, Hazel met Ichiro. Their casual interactions grew into a relationship, and Hazel often asked Ichiro for money to support her lavish way of life. Eventually, Ichiro introduced her to his parents. They thought well of her at first. She was beautiful, polite, and spoke fluent Japanese. But when marriage came up, Ichiro's mother expressed disapproval. The exact reason wasn't clear, but it was enough for Ichiro to end the relationship. Afterward, Hazel disappeared from his life until January 16th, the day his parents were found dead. On that day, around noon, Ichiro was at work when he received a call from Hazel. It was the first time he had heard from her since their breakup. She sounded upset and emotional, asking him to come back and start over. Ichiro didn't take her request seriously. Later that evening, around 5 p.m., he received another message from her. "It's over." This message would later take on a much darker meaning. When Ichiro recognized Hazel in the CCTV footage, the police became sure she was involved in the crime. But the footage also showed a second person, a masked figure whose identity was still unknown. As the investigation went on, it was revealed that Hazel had an accomplice, a man named Brian Jefferson Leasing Dela Cruz. Brian was a 34-year-old Filipino who had visited Japan at least twice, most recently on a temporary work visa for a technical training program. He was arrested on January 21st, and during questioning, Hazel initially denied knowing him, claiming she had no involvement in the murders. She even tried to create an alibi, saying she had spent the day helping a friend search for an apartment. But under pressure, she eventually admitted to knowing Brian and confessed to their role in the murders. Surveillance footage from a convenience store showed Brian buying 3 cans of beer around 10:20 p.m. on the night of the murders. He was wearing a jacket with fur on the hood, a mask, and bandages on his hand, which appeared to be injured. Hazel and Brian had known each other since her days in the Philippines, and they had reconnected after she moved to Japan. After Hazel broke up with Ichiro, she started spending time with Brian. She often talked to Brian about her financial struggles, which likely led him to help her with a dark plan. In the days before the murders, Hazel approached Brian and shared her troubling idea. It's unclear why Brian took such a big risk, losing his job, freedom, and future, but he did. Together, they carried out a tragic plan. On January 16th, Hazel and Brian entered the Takahashi home unnoticed. Hazel had visited the house before with Ichiro, so she knew the passcode and was familiar with the layout. Once inside, they hid in a room, waiting for the right moment. During this time, Hazel called Ichiro, perhaps hoping to get him back before going through with her plan. Around 1 p.m., Norihiro briefly left the house and returned just a few minutes later. Half an hour later, Kimie left the house, giving Hazel and Brian the chance they needed to confront Norihiro alone. When Kimie returned and entered the living room, she too was attacked. Hazel and Brian stabbed Norihiro and Kimie multiple times, killing them almost instantly. After the attack, they tried to clean up the crime scene, using their clothes to wipe up the blood. But in their rush, they missed several spots, leaving clear evidence behind. They wrapped the bodies in a bag and hid them under the floorboards, hoping to cover their tracks. Before leaving, they casually tossed their bloody clothes into a nearby trash bin, as if they could walk away from what they had done. As the investigation continued, a Philippine embassy official noted that one of the suspects seemed emotionally disturbed. Japanese investigators first focused on possible motives like grudges or money problems related to Hazel. Some speculated that she might have killed Norihiro and Kimie to avoid paying money she had borrowed from Ichiro. Others believed it was because Norihiro and Kimie didn't approve of her relationship with their son, due to her expensive lifestyle and their concerns about her being a good match for him. The case shocked both Japan and the Philippines. Many feared it could strain relations between the two countries or affect how foreign workers were viewed in Japan. The investigation is still ongoing, with Hazel and Brian under scrutiny. Japanese authorities are working with Philippine officials who are helping with legal matters. Evidence like CCTV footage and DNA matches is strengthening the case. But final charges and court proceedings are still pending. As we reflect on this heartbreaking story, there are many unanswered questions. What was the true reason behind the tragedy? Why did Brian agree to such a terrible act? While we may never fully understand, what we do know is that Norihiro and Kimie Takahashi were kind, caring people whose lives were taken far too soon. Their loss is deeply felt by their family, friends, and community. Our hearts go out to those who loved them. We hope their memory is honored, and that justice brings some comfort to their loved ones during this incredibly painful time. If you have thoughts on this case or want to discuss it further, we encourage you to share your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more updates on this case and others. Your support helps us keep important conversations like this going. Until next time, stay safe and take care of each other.